Hey there, I'm Frank Daniels with Pilot Radio, and with me today is Jonathan Bym from the Pilot's Newsroom, bringing us the latest news in Moore County. And we are recording today, October 9th, at just after 12:30.
Yeah, week's already flown by.
I know it has. So you said you have kind of one newsy thing and one editorial
Yeah, one opinion
opinion.
piece. Yeah, somewhat. Yeah. So I guess, and they're both Hurricane Helene sort of adjacent or related stories. We'll start with the news side with the High School Athletic Association of North Carolina has announced their modifications for this fall sports season. So it includes sports like women's tennis or girls tennis, volleyball, cross country, boys soccer, girls golf, and football are all, well, not necessarily women's golf or girls golf, but we're going to see some changes with how that looks because they want to include all the schools out west. They don't want to leave them behind. I think right now, honestly, athletics is probably not in the forefronts of anyone's mind, and usually in these kind of disasters. But I think as we get closer to the next coming couple weeks, it's like once we get back to normal, that's going to help bring back normalcy, is that kind of schedule.
Right.
So you've got, it looks like football is going to be pushed back a couple weeks. It's going to be 2 weeks delay on that, starting with the first round of the football season on November 15th. So that's, like I said, 2 weeks after when it was supposed to be. So that allows teams to make up games. There's a period where schools or football teams have to have so many days between games. The state has waived that, said as long as there's 3 calendar days between games, you can play. So that will help out those teams. Now volleyball can play up to 8 matches in a week, which is a lot when you think about it. But you can also there's daily limitations, so you can only play 2 matches a day. So and you can't play, and there will be no practice, no games on Sunday. But they want to get everybody caught back up, so that way everybody is able to play. Because when you think about it, from like the I-77 corridor west was really hit hard, and they're the ones that are probably without school for the next couple weeks, next couple days. Everybody east of that, and it's going to leave like a waiting game. So the NCHSAA has came out with a special provision. They can approve one additional contest for all fall sports within the season limit. So football can only play 10 games in the regular season. Now they can play 11. So I think when you talk about these schools around here, the regular season will end right here. Let's see, we're week 8 on October 11th, so 9th, 10th. The week 11 would be November 1st. So that's 2 weeks of sort of sitting around waiting to figure out what's going to happen. They can throw in an extra game in there to keep those teams sharp a little bit, I guess, going into the playoffs.
Yeah, that makes sense. So basically, they're extending some sort the eligible, or just trying to get my head around it. So because schools, I don't remember the dates off the top of my head, but like you say, they've postponed.
Yeah, everything. I would say everything. Yeah, everything's back 2 weeks, which I don't think pushing everything back 2 weeks. It's going to be really tough. I think there will be probably some games that don't get on the schedule because when you try to fit, you're playing soccer and you've got to play 12 games in a week and a half. It's going to be really tough, and you throw in a rain delay here or something like that. So it's probably. I think there's going to be some games that won't get played, but I think they just really want to get it where inclusion for everybody in the state playoffs picture for the NCHSAA.
But that any teams that play out there would only meet teams from the rest of the state during playoffs anyway.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, the West can go as far as Montgomery County.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think the east-west cutoff is we're actually as far west as you can get in the east here in Moore County. So the most easterly parts of the west considered in the High School Athletic Association classifications would be Montgomery County, Davidson County, even down to Stanley County, Anson County. So those are schools that are not really. They just got rain a couple weeks ago when Hurricane Helene came through, so it wasn't like they were hit too hard. Heaven forbid something happens again, but this is just the state's athletic association's way of saying, hey, we're going to include everybody.
And as you say, it's so important once people are past that initial.
Yeah, once there's no safety precautions. That's the main thing, is just making sure everybody's safe.
Yeah, and then everybody will want some sort of sense of normalcy, and I think you're right. Games can really help do that for high school aged students.
Yeah, I think communities as well. I mean, I think it's going to be a rallying cry for places. Like, there's a lot of dedicated families in Western North Carolina. I mean, I've seen pictures of Pisgah High School, which has been, that high school athletic complex has been hit 2 or 3 times in like the last 5 years, and it looks, like I said, it looks like a war zone. Or what a war zone is depicted. I've never been in a war zone to say that, so I made to make sure to be sensitive when I wrote my column that'll be running in Sunday.
Well, let's talk about that now, since we were going to. You went up, what was it, last weekend to the mountains?
Yeah, so I think I guess the whole premise of this was I was scheduled for vacation this past Friday and the following Monday, so the Monday of this week. So I was planning on being off, and the reason was for a music festival. Me and my wife were going to go. The storm wipes out the festival's grounds, and they said we're canceling the festival. So I could have easily came back to the office and said, "Hey, John, I'm not going to be missing Friday and Monday next week. I'll be here." But my wife works in the medical field. It's a little tougher to get back onto a schedule. We actually had a hotel that was sort of booked in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and we're like, what are we going to do? Maybe go play around in Charlotte some. And then we're like, why don't we try to go west and help out with the volunteer efforts out there after Hurricane Helene? And so that was, we found out the Wednesday before we were supposed to be leaving, and that where we were going to go to Marion in McDowell County, and it's rough. I mean, I think the pictures that you've seen, the videos you've seen, during the storm, and then just to see what the aftermath has left is really jarring for some people. It was jarring for me to see like a whole town. What the town of Old Fort was, I can only imagine a picturesque mountain town with a river dissecting the town, a babbling little brook going through, and just, it wasn't that. It was muddy. It was dirty. It was like, looked like a disaster. It looked like a bomb had went off because everything was everywhere. And we worked with Baptist on Mission for 2 days on one home that was right there on the creek that was coming through, and it was just 4 inches deep of mud. It's terrible. And so I sort of depicted that, and that's the thing. We've sort of seen what Moore County has done to help out with the pilots leaving from the airport, flying up to Asheville, taking supplies, and the truckloads going up there, and everybody that's giving out. And the one thing my column sort of points out is those were nice now, but there's an overabundance of it. I think we've hit past that stage where supplies and goods are maybe not quite as needed as much as volunteering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if you're including the photo, because you showed, I only saw a couple of them, but the photo of the train trestle was really striking to me. Because it basically all the support for the tracks were
so
washed out.
Yeah, we're talking about a whole rail bed, like the rocks and all the dirt build up, so it can be higher than like the ground around it, and it's just one section was just wiped out. So the bridge was almost levitating, or the rails were almost levitating in air, because that just shows the power of water. I think that people don't quite realize, and I don't think many people in the mountains really they knew about the power of water, because obviously what hydroelectric power can do, but they didn't think it would ever come to something like this in where they're at. When you think about it, you got a whole mountain that's basically like a funnel, and all these people live in valleys, and the water's got to go somewhere, and it just went from 4 foot deep creeks to like 20 feet over to the banks, like in no time, just because. And it caught some people by surprise, and that's why I think we're going, when it's all said and done, I think it's going to be a very massive amount of loss of life. But I think the main thing is what we've seen is everybody coming together. That's sort of the premise of it: neighbor helping neighbor. I don't live in McDowell County, but I felt like I was a neighbor helping a neighbor that this past weekend.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think about is community, and being a part of the community that we live in here, but really it extends to the state. And that's one of the things I've loved about North Carolina growing up, is we really are kind of a state that's a community. And I don't know what it's like living in another state, so maybe it's that way other places too, but I've always felt it's something special. And so it sounds like that bears out in your experience this past weekend as well. I think it's really special that people are coming together and doing so much to help each other.
Yep, it certainly is.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, and I can't wait to read the column and any of your other reporting as well. Always available online at thepilot.com or in the paper. And you can send us your feedback, give us your suggestions to frank@pilot-radio.com or to jonathan@thepilot.com. And we will be back tomorrow with Elena Marsh, and you will join us again next Wednesday. And again, thanks.
Yep, appreciate it, Frank.